Hello, friends. Uncle Marv here with another episode of the IT Business Podcast, coming at you live from Orlando, Florida. And if you're watching the live stream, you probably noticed that because my background is different. I am here at Zero Trust World and having a great old time. And first of all, I need to say thank you to ThreatLocker for allowing me to come to this event. I am here as a member of the media, and I have a booth inside the Solution Pavilion. So I'm rubbing shoulders with the vendors and watching people as they walk by. And when I say watching people as they walk by, literally, because the food is right in front of my booth. So people walk by, ignore me because they're on a mission to eat. So that's how that is. It's been a good day. Day one here, and got several good interviews in, some of them tech related, some of them not. You'll be surprised. So when I post them, don't worry about it. Good conversations with good people. And we'll be back for day two. And again, we'll be in the Solution Pavilions with the other vendors. And I hope to get a couple of interviews with CEO Danny Jenkins and some other high ThreatLocker officials, because there's supposed to be some big news, and I hope to ask them about that news once it is delivered. Now, those of you watching live, of course, I don't have all the usual stuff going on, but I do have the guest that we had talked about. Mike Psenka was on a show previously, and you guys actually sent in some comments and stuff. So that surprised me, but I appreciate it, and I'm going to ask him about those. So let me bring to the stage Mike Cinca with Moovila. Mike, how are you?
Hey, good, Marvin. How are you? Good to see you again.
Doing
Thanks
good.
for having me.
Thanks for coming back on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I know that I asked you ahead of time if you got any feedback from anybody, either at Moovila or that you heard out and about.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, for sure. From the folks on our team in that process, and out in kind of social ecosphere, kind of got some data points back into. So yeah, I was just excited to do it. Really enjoyed doing the show.
All right, good. I got some feedback too, and I got some clarification questions. And even when I went back myself, and even though I don't edit, I do go back and look over the notes, look over the transcript, and try to make sure that I asked a question the right way or I understood things appropriately. So let's do this first. Let's kind of recap the show for those of you. That was episode 766. And of course, Moovila is the AI project management platform that is supposed to help us do a ton of stuff. And one of the things that I wanted to ask you about is the critical path engine.
Yeah.
So I know that I probably sounded like I followed along with you right along the path and everything. And I think the one thing that it got me was when it comes to making shifts. If you're dealing with a project and it's, either going off the rails or a deadline didn't happen, we didn't talk about the mechanisms of what actually happens. I know that we can go look and see that, something's off, which means everything else will be off. But how are things alerted in the portal there?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I guess a couple of things are important to note. With the platform, for most of our customers, there's a bi-directional integration with their PSA, right? So if they're using ConnectWise, Halo and Autotask recently have come online. So there's sort of a full bi-directional interface. So if they've got existing projects in any of those platforms, when they first integrate, all of that data kind of synchronizes between the two systems. And I think it's sort of well known in the industry that the project management components of those platforms are just not super robust and lead to maybe inaccurate dates, resourcing, scheduling issues associated with those projects. So I just want to sort of give that context as I talk about sort of what the critical path engine does and the platform does, because at the end of the day, many MSPs want to use their PSA as a single source of truth for dates. They want to check in on that, but they might be managing their projects in our platform, but they're going to want to look at schedules and process and billing maybe back in their PSA. So
Right.
inside of Perfect Project, the Moovila platform, the critical path engine, and there are components that run sort of server side in the cloud, and then there's components on the client, right? Kind of in a redundant way. But what the critical path engine is doing is continuously analyzing and observing the entire project portfolio. So a lot of the critical path engine is discrete math, graph theory, expert system stuff, where it'll observe the vertices and edges, i.e. the tasks and the dependencies, and all of the other components for who it's assigned to, those resources, their resource types, their process, their schedules, the task descriptions. It'll monitor those projects and analyze them and identify where there are risk issues associated with that project. And I think the last time we talked, we sort of said, hey, the best way to think about it is it's a little bit like a debugger, right? We look at work like a programming language, and you debug programming languages so the code will compile. Well, any project or structured work is sort of the programming of people to do work, right? And this system actually can interact with Internet of Things. We've got some use cases in other industries where we work with construction equipment and process, but when it identifies a risk or an issue, it can alert users around those issues, or if a user or project manager, program manager is actually in the platform itself, it can tell them and virtualize the project as it should be, right? So sort of give you an example, if you pulled a project up and you were refreshing a network or porting someone to the cloud, and you had your project plan and you had the dependencies set up and the tasks, if there were any delays, any blocks, any capacity conflicts that were analyzed in that project plan, it would then virtualize a new set of dates and say, well, you believe, your current project plan says you're going to be doing these tasks on these dates, but based on the analysis of resources, personnel, delays in tasks, this is now your critical path, and the dates on these tasks are going to change based on the current status of the project. Now, the user can either say, well, and we always talk about supervised automation in this because the PMs are going to want to kind of evaluate and observe that. But if they accept those delays as real and say, we want to recast this, just sort of with a click of a button, they can recast that entire project. It'll reallocate those tasks, and it'll automatically synchronize back to their source PSA system. So they're not having to sort of update every single little task or process. So that can happen automatically. And the nice part of that is if they're using scheduling, or if they're having to schedule engineers for those tasks, it will identify that those schedules are now invalid, right? Hey, you've got these 6 appointments set up for these 6 engineers. Or if you're going to schedule engineer time on a task, on a project, if that project plan hasn't been updated and it's out of date, it won't let you. It'll say, hey, you shouldn't schedule on those dates. Those are the wrong dates to schedule on. These are the real dates you should schedule on to avoid schedule churn. So it's, there's always the ability to override these things if the user wants to, but it's continuously sort of virtualizing the most accurate picture of that project, and then giving the opportunity to the user to update that project plan, update those dates, and synchronize with their PSA. And same thing with scheduled events, the notes, all the, the notes, the time tracking, the schedule, all that stuff sort of synchronizes bidirectionally between both systems. So when the user's in there looking, they know that they've got sort of up to the minute information.
All right. So between the alerting and the fact that, if they go in and look, it's going to update and do that. So that's good.
Yep.
All right. Should at least do a shout out here. So Eric Anthony with All Things MSP has piped in to say hello. And that's interesting to me because he's out on a ship, on a cruise.
Oh, wow.
So, I don't know why, Eric, I don't know why you're popping on my show, but thanks.
Where can you say where he is, what cruise and what ship?
I don't want to out him like that. Let's do this. So I didn't ask you last time is what is the one thing that MSPs, techs have all raved about when it comes to Moovila? I kind of asked you, the technical stuff and everything,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Well, the thing that I always say is the by far the best feature of our platform is our people. So the thing that we universally get raves about, I mean, they love the technology and it's cool, but our operations team and our support team and the education and the sort of elevation of skill set around project and program management, I think most of our customers are surprised, right? They go, oh, we're going to get onboarded onto the software and don't realize that, hey, they're going to kind of get coached towards digital transformation and the availability and I guess our operations team, how much they kind of dive into the customer's business to help them with their templates, their process, automating, because, it's a big industry and there's a lot of similarities between industries, but every MSP has, unique components to it. So that's one of the things that we hear all the time is just, the raves. We come to the conferences and customers come up to the booth and they want to like, hey, where's Jared? Where's Lewis? Where's Bucky? Where's Becca? So they're looking for the operations folks that they love to work with. So super grateful to have those guys on our team.
All right, very nice. One of the things that I also wanted to go back on is a question that actually came in from one of the listeners, and I rephrased the question because of the way they asked it, where it, basically said, you stated that your customer base is generally 20 employees and above, but you also mentioned that smaller shops could benefit. So the question was, what would you say to an MSP with 5 or less employees to convince them that Moovila was the right choice?
Yeah, so there are a couple of things that for a smaller organization it's going to be helpful. One, if they're scaling and they are project intensive, it can significantly reduce the operational cost and the time it takes to do that. And so it may reduce the need for an additional hire for some of the administrative component. It'll also reduce the requirement of a skill set for project management. So we've got a lot of customers who are saying, hey, I can have one of my engineers. They talk about sort of citizen project managers. So there's a lot of AI and automation around guiding best practice for project and program and portfolio management. The software sort of facilitates that. And so smaller organizations go, look, I can't afford, or I don't need a PM. We've got these projects that we have to manage, but I don't know that I necessarily want to hire a PM, but things are starting to get squirrely on us. So the software can do that. The other thing that I will say that we have heard too is this issue of redundancy, right? So in smaller organizations, there's a lot of organizational knowledge that will live within an individual. Large organizations have all kinds of redundancies and systems in place because they know that they're going to have transients among those things, but smaller organizations don't. And so having the platform to act as this repository, this automated repository, it is easier for someone to come in and pick up, so to speak, where somebody else left off. And it creates sort of this layer of redundancy of the work that's in progress in the event someone's unavailable, they're booked on another project, or they have turnover in their business and go, oh my gosh, this person was really kind of running the show and they had their spreadsheets here and their email here and they had everything in their head. What do we have in flight? I don't know. And so having sort of a centralized, organized, obviously cloud-based secure system can provide some redundancy for those folks as well. And then lastly, some of the stuff that we've got coming up soon in Project Hub is around best practice, having a library and a universe of projects and templates for people to utilize and to share and collaborate around. Because obviously the large organizations will have bigger product portfolios that they can manage for their projects, but smaller organizations getting that sort of content, that knowledge can be an important thing for them to understand, hey, this is the best practice on how to execute on this. So that's something we've got coming up too that we're excited about, that we know is going to be, and that we've heard there's sort of from the smaller organizations, they've said, well, I may not need everything you're doing, but wow, I really want that when that comes when that comes out, when you guys have that live, let me know, because that is something I'm very interested in.
Right. I didn't ask you, do you guys have a bunch of templates in place for, regular normal task, I guess?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So we do have, so for customers, we have templates and process that when we're doing the onboarding process that we can share with them, but we do have this, coming soon, we've got a new module, a feature called Project Hub, and it's going to allow organizations, communities to share resources, templates together in a process, and organizations to publish their content to their customers. And then, of course, we're going to have globally available templates and projects around some compliance issues and common projects and best practice. And we're really excited about Project Hub because it is going to be a really effective ecosystem to sort of share that content. And then as we look forward on that product roadmap towards things like, benchmarking, reporting, and analytics for those templates as well. So, and the templates and the work won't just be related to delivery of services and practice to the customers, but really how to run their business, things that they can do to help improve their own business, their own process. And as I said earlier, compliance components are something that we're excited to do and help with as well.
So is that going to be available to everybody, or are you going to be able to group, projects of this type for this size MSP or things like that? Or is it just an open community hub?
So it'll be as we're going through the category process right now with some of the content that we've got in place, it'll be categorized fundamentally initially. And I don't want to get my hand slapped by our product team by talking about this stuff before it's released. They're gonna be frustrated at me. But at the highest level category, there's service and product delivery to customer. And then the other major category is sort of internal operations and process. Those are sort of the two major categories. It's sort of as far as delineation. Basically, how can I help my customers? How can I help myself? Be more profitable. What can I do for my own business and process? And that's going to be, there'll be stratification in that. And we've talked about sort of initial filters and process that we'll want to do. But the other really big part of this is there are so many community groups that exist within this that want to share within their group. So this will become a vehicle for them to share that. Initially, it will live within the platform, but ultimately our goal is to make this, and for those partners that want to share their content publicly as well, make this a little more globally accessible.
All right. Now, how is that going to work with your current internal support? Because I know one of the questions is, how much do you help an MSP get up and going? What type of support if they're stuck in the middle of a project and they, have those things that go off kilter and they want to try to get it back on track? Do you guys help with that? Or is that something that you're hoping the community will help with?
So, and I guess what I ask Marvin, when you talk about sort of when things go off kilter, right? So a big part of it is the software and some of the agents inside of the software are designed to help analyze structural components of the project going off kilter. Now, if the project going off kilter means, hey, the customer's non-responsive, that's obviously something that, we would not have a hand in as much. But if it's, hey, you've got blockers on these tasks, you've got, these work streams, these capacity conflicts, the software sort of facilitates through that. So in the onboarding and the training that occurs, what our operations team does a lot of times is help organizations. One, in some cases, a lot of MSPs may not fully understand the critical path process, right? And the idea of templatizing their work for repeatability. And so part of the onboarding and the training is to take them into that process of saying, hey, you're repeatable, whether that's customer onboarding or if you have common practices and surfaces, architecting the right templates for them so that can become a very quick automated process to activate those templates as they start those projects and automatically assign those out to the appropriate engineers and individuals. So a lot of it is enabling, sort of teaching them how to fish, so to speak. A big part of the onboarding is just to say, kind of, hey, let's make sure that all of our customers understand their critical path process and arm them with the knowledge on how to execute in an ongoing way so they have confidence about their roadmaps and their project plans. And you said, hey, a lot of projects go sideways. because organizationally they can be a mess if they're in a spreadsheet or they're in another system that doesn't impose integrity on the dates.
Interesting. All right. So I know I've asked you some weird questions off the bat, so I guess I should also ask, do MSPs act like prima donnas, like, nobody ever does anything the way we do? And how do we compare to your other industries like construction?
So, like I said, I've said this a dozen times. I've been in tech for 30 something years, 32, 33 years. The MSP industry by far, is the most collaborative with each other, even though people are competitors like that. You don't see where people are really essentially competitors, even if they're not in the same geographic region. They can still be competitors. So we've found it a great market to work in. Like you said, we've been in healthcare and finance and all these other markets and areas. There just is a collegiality inside the MSP market that's super, super helpful. And I'll tell you the other thing that I really love, because they're just super technical and smart. So that is very helpful for us because we have a technical product, right? We're saying, hey, we've got this discrete math engine and it's going to do this, and people pick up on it pretty quickly. In the past, we've been in other industries and you're kind of going, this idea of AI-driven project management and what we're doing sometimes, hey, work should be programmed, not managed. That, can be difficult in some industries, but the MSP industry, it's been pretty easy. We have not seen a prima donna sort of concept come across.
Okay.
I think, there's been an eagerness to learn. I think, especially with what we're doing, I think customers have said, hey, that we understand this is something we need to do better for margins. And so, yeah, I love this industry. Like I said, as we're getting involved, we've got more and more involved in it. Like I said, it was just shocked how much there is a sort of, let's help each other. Let's help each other. Rising tide lifts all ships.
All right. I just didn't want to make it seem like I was asking, specific questions that were, everybody thought were unique to just them.
Yeah. So I'm curious, do you think the MSP industry can have a bit of a prima donna culture or character?
I don't say MSPs in general, but some MSPs, yes.
Okay. I've not met those yet. I'm sure they're out there like any industry, but
well, yeah, because there's some that are thinking we have found the better way to do this, so we're special.
Yeah. Well, it's a relationship business, I think. And I think at the end of the year, I think you and I talked about this a little last time, is despite everything that's out there and all the technology that's out there, this is just kind of always going to be a relationship business.
Right.
And, efficiencies and process really matter as far as a better way, sort of the secret sauce. But my guess is underpinning a lot of this is always just, culture and personalities and relationships that help build those businesses.
So in talking about MSPs versus the others, how much overlap is there with, the engineering and the platforms and stuff? Do you have to, customize certain parts of it based on the industry?
Yeah, I think it's utilization of the tools and which components get leaned into a little more heavily. So I'll say that, project portfolio management at a sort of generic sense is obviously a very horizontal thing. MSPs, one of the other, so if you say retail, finance, construction is a very similar kind of industry. Heavy civil construction in specific is very similar to MSPs because the sizes of the businesses are the bulk of those companies are 5 to 50 employees. They have a lot of projects. Those projects are very dependent on customers. They're highly variable. They're running and using the same resources across multiple projects. Those projects in construction can get sideways, go over budget. The owners don't find out about it until too late, and they can do nothing about it. They're really trying to get real-time. They're a margin-sensitive business. They're trying to get real-time expense information so they can make effective decisions, schedule accurately and efficiently. So those parallels between that industry is in some ways it's they're eerily similar in certain cases. I will say that the MSP industry also is probably, when you say specific, at a broad level, things like, hey, we got to schedule people down to the minute, and we really, really want to understand for the efficiency and the utilization of our business. We're not just saying that guy's working Tuesday or Tuesday and Wednesday next week. We're saying that guy's working or gal's working 8 to 9:30 on Tuesday, and then they're going to work from 10 to 12:30, and it's for this, and I need, so it's a really, really very detail specific business, and there's a lot of moving parts in that, and that's why having that automated is so critical, because it's just kind of hard to keep tabs on all of that detail.
Right.
I think also how they bill, how MSPs will bill the work and their projects and what they're doing, and managing those costs and trying to avoid, how they deal with variability of those costs, right? Because, hey, can we recapture it? Is this a fixed fee project? Are we doing time and materials? You have to accommodate all of those components, because, as we talked about before, MSPs have a lot of different relationships with different customers in different ways. And so you've got to accommodate that kind of variability in the same platform. It's got to be able to be configured. And that's also kind of part of the onboarding processes. How do you guys bill? How do you set that up? How many rate sheets do you have? What kinds of projects are you running? All that has to be configured, for the customer, so it can get configured to their use. It's not just a sort of simple scheduling app or something that you go, hey, I get it. I get what we need to do here.
Right. I think you did say this last time, but I'm going to ask again because I honestly don't remember. But if you're doing multiple projects, let's say, an MSP's got 20 projects going on, and you've got to assign a tech or an engineer to multiple projects. Does Moovila have the ability to kind of manage how much time is spent in one project versus another, and to be able to say, hey, you can't work 10 hours here because you're already working, 50 here?
Yep, that's exactly right. So, and that is one of the unique, sort of this dog does some unique tricks. And that is one of the unique tricks this does, is it will go across the entire portfolio for capacity conflicts. And even more so, and once again, and this is, Marvin, this is where the sort of the devil is in the details. So let's say you have, project, A, B, C, and D, and you go, okay, we've got everything scheduled, everything looks good. And then project A gets delayed, and there's a task because the customer doesn't deliver something, and we now know that delay is 6-7 days, whatever it is. That will get virtualized, and when you show up in project C, it's going to say you have a capacity conflict. And you have a capacity conflict not with the dates that you thought A has, but these virtualized dates, which are based on the current status of this project. You now have a capacity conflict. So do you want to extend this project a couple of days? Do you want to shift a resource? Because this person can't be in two places at one time. And once again, this is the just absurd amount of constantly changing calendar math that occurs that no human being could possibly manage. And that results in schedule churn, right? That results, like, the really bad outcome is when the engineer goes, yeah, I couldn't get that done. I know you had me scheduled for that, but I couldn't do it. And now you've got dead time on your hands. You just lost an afternoon or half a day with a billable resource that could have been billing on something else, but they didn't because people couldn't keep up with the math.
Right. I'm sorry. I'm going to do a huge shift here.
Yeah.
Has anybody ever said that you have a voice like that?
Uh-oh. Here it comes. I don't know.
And its name, for some reason, it just escaped me. I had it in my head, and I was just waiting for the right time to ask. The motivational speaker. The Robbins guy.
Oh God.
Anthony Robbins? Is it Anthony?
Is it Tony Robbins?
Tony Robbins. Yes, Tony Robbins.
Okay.
Maybe a couple of times where you're speaking, and as your sentence tails off, I'm like, that sounds like Tony Robbins. Has anybody ever said that to you?
Oh, that's funny. That's funny.
I guess no.
Yeah, I've heard that. It's been a long time. It's been a long time since I've heard that. I think you're saying that, and that reminds me. It's been a long time since I've heard that.
Okay. All right. God, makes me feel ridiculous now.
No. He's like, does he even still do it? I mean, he's like, this is like he was doing it like 30 years ago, right?
I saw him the other day on, I don't know, like a YouTube clip or something. So I think he still does it, but obviously
Okay.
I don't think he's as popular as he was.
Yeah, like I remember, like I said, maybe back in the 90s, I thought he was like a big deal or something. Maybe he is still doing it. I don't know. Maybe he's still very popular.
Yeah. Have you ever gone to any of his events?
No, I've not.
Okay.
Have you?
Yes.
Are they good?
No.
That's funny.
It was just one of those things where I went. And so one of the reasons I went was it was the same type of thing where he brought in multiple people, and I forget all who they were, but like 3 of the 7 were people I'm like, ooh, I think I'd like to hear that.
Yeah.
And one was Lou Holtz, coach of Notre Dame.
Okay.
Back when I was big in football, and then there was another very famous person in business. And I thought, okay, I'll go. And I remember feeling like this is just a hype show.
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, sorry to anybody who listens or watches the show that, feels differently, but that's how I felt. It was like, it's just a hype show.
So you're saying there was no substance, there was no detail in it. It was
not really. I mean, he had the person walking on the coals, and they had some, I think he was 80 years old doing 100 push-ups.
Okay.
But I'm looking at the guy, I'm like, okay, the guy's probably 100 pounds. And of course he can do 100 push-ups. He's not, it doesn't have a ton of weight to do that. It was weird. It was weird. So
yeah. There was a lot, and it seemed like that was a really big thing to me. Like I remember seeing a lot of that stuff, like I said, in the 90s, 2000s. I guess it's probably all over YouTube now.
Yeah. I mean, people are still doing it. There's, people trying to recreate those events and stuff. And listen, there are obviously there's parts of it that work. I mean, or else they wouldn't keep doing it, right? There's got to be some substance behind it. You probably had to pay to get the real good stuff, which I didn't do.
Yeah. They give you 1 or 2 tools, and you go into it and go, well, I was expecting more. Like that, you're 2 free things, and you're going to give me 2 more things, and then 28 things that are useless.
Yeah. All right. Sorry to take us off track there.
No, it's all good.
Well, speaking of being on the road and doing shows and stuff, so you're obviously not here at Zero Trust World. You're not out at Right at Boom. What is the next big event for you guys?
So GTIA, I guess the former CompTIA event will be out at that.
The one in Vegas or Tennessee or whatever, Nashville.
It's in Chicago, actually. I think.
Oh, Chicago. Okay.
Yeah, I think that event in the middle of March is in Chicago. MSP Summit in Vegas, I think, is at the end of March. Kaseya's got an event at the end of April, and we've got teams going to Evolve and Robbins, and so those are just some of the events I was going to. But spring and fall is chock full of events. It is event season.
All right, I didn't hear ASCII in there.
I think we've had folks go to ASCII. I'm not going to ASCII. I know that we've had folks on our marketing team and ops team go to those as well. And I probably should know them all off the top of my head, but the list.
No, you shouldn't. You're the man in charge.
The list is growing.
You don't have to know everything.
What's that?
You don't have to know everything. You're in charge.
That's what I said. The joke used to be, you've made it when you don't know how to operate the phones in your office. Right?
That's a good one. Let's see. PAX 8 Beyond and IT Nation are my next big events besides the ASCII. And Florida Man Games. I'll be at that. But
the what?
No tech will be there.
Florida Man Games? Is that what you said?
Florida Man Games.
What is that?
Have you ever seen a Florida man story
No.
or looked up a Florida man where you type in a date in Florida man and see what crazy tale there is?
Oh no. That now I'm writing that down though.
Yeah. So normally on the live show, I would do a Florida man story, but because I'm here, I'm not going to do that this week. But I'll have to send you a link to some of the past shows. Actually, you know what?
Okay.
Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pull up, and this will be a terrible thing to do live. Yes. So I get list of Florida man stories, and while I'm doing that, so Florida Man Games is basically built off the concept of if it's crazy, it happens in Florida. So all of the crazy police chase, all of the guys going crazy, getting arrested with, their shirt off, men throwing alligators through Wendy's drive-through windows.
Always dudes, right? Always
Yeah.
dudes. This is how for sure women know they're better than men. Like this is
Yeah. So the Florida Man alerts for the last 24 to 36 hours. As soon as this comes up, the internet's slow here. But the Florida Man Games is built off of a police chase, drunken sumo wrestling. There's a robbery-prone obstacle course. There's all those types of things.
Oh, that's amazing.
Of course, the internet's not cooperating. This is why I knew I wasn't going to be able to do Florida Man. But I'll share some stories with you.
Yeah, please do.
It's pretty funny. So, all right. Well, Mike, I obviously was out of questions because I started talking about Tony Robbins. Was there anything that I know you didn't really get a ton of feedback, but was there anything that you or your team thought about that, maybe I didn't ask in depth, or something that you normally talk about with people when they come up to a booth or anything like that?
Yeah, one of the things that we'll commonly talk to folks about when they sort of want to wrap their mind around what we're doing, project management's been around forever. And, it's, my God, the world didn't need just yet another project management platform, right? So people will say, what are you doing differently? Like what is different? And what we'll explain to folks is, hey, this is sort of like RMM for your projects, right? And so if you can think about this, endpoints have a failure rate, and you use RMM because you want to increase the span of control for your engineers. You want to identify those problems with those endpoints early to remediate them. You want to be able to remediate them, kind of remotely, to lower cost, improve customer uptime, satisfaction. These are all things that sort of RMM came out to do and really did an amazing job of helping and solve sort of the break fix process. Well, project tasks have a failure rate too. And most MSPs have as many tasks active at any time as they do endpoints in some cases for their project portfolio over the course of a year. And those tasks have a higher failure rate than endpoints do. And the jeopardy of a failure on a task endpoint can really create reputational risk, customer problems, and project problems. And so what we tell folks is we're like RMM for your projects. We're autonomously monitoring, identifying alerts, risks, letting you know about problems early. And then the math is there. It's providing that same kind of benefit. We can increase the span of control of your project managers. And so that resonates because it makes sense why. Most MSPs were sort of there and in many cases understood what it was like before they had RMMs in that process. And, I think one of the things that will illuminate for people is to say, hey, and I would say in general, one of the things we tell people is human beings suck at probability. We're just terrible at it inherently, right? We're good at basic arithmetic, but when it comes to this idea of probability, we're just, whatever reason, the good Lord didn't give us the genetics to understand and process probability accurately. And the example we'll give is the birthday paradox, which says if you have 23 people in a room, there's a 50% chance 2 people have the same birthday. And that doesn't make sense to most people because they go, well, 23, there's 365 days in a year. That doesn't seem right. It doesn't matter that it doesn't seem right. It is right. And if you have 60 people, there's a 99% chance 2 people have the same birthday.
Right.
And it's just like I said, some people go, well, what does that have to do with me? I said, well, if you have a project and you have 40 tasks in the critical path, and your engineers and your team get their work done on time 90% of the time, 9 out of 10 times, everybody gets their work done on time. There's only a 1.5% chance that project's going to be done on time. And if you have 20 of those projects in a portfolio, the probability is 3.32 times 10 to the negative 37th. And just to give an idea how small that number is, the odds the sun won't rise tomorrow is 6.03 times 10 to the negative 17th. So it's a billion times more likely that the sun won't rise tomorrow than that your project portfolio isn't going to have problems. And that's, because people get frustrated. They're like, oh, we have a people problem. Like, you probably don't have a people problem. You have a probability problem. And you're not aware of that. And you need to be alerted. You're going to have problems, right? You're going to have issues. You're going to have, and the bigger you are and the more you grow, you're just going to have more and more issues. And the best thing that you can do is find out about those problems early and try to remediate them automatically. And so that, like I said, that component resonates well within this industry. And that was one of the things and why we loved getting in it is we said, wow, there's a really strong parallel for what our tech is doing for MSPs. They sort of understand the inherent value proposition of this idea of, hey, you can automatically monitor a lot of distributed information that changes all the time.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you guys have come up with a product that is certainly going to help us out for many years to come, because our projects are going to simply just get more and more complex.
And more important. And that service delivery will be more important, right? As machines and networks and process become more self-healing and that tech part of that process kind of moves in that direction, they're going to be looking to MSPs to become more advisors, experts, and facilitators in the evolution of those businesses. And that'll all be in the form of this structured work, also known as a project.
All right. So let me look here. I know that Tim Golden was here today. Hello to Tim. And of course, Eric. And then there's always people that lurk and don't say hello. So if you're still here, folks, at least say hello and let us know that you're watching. And of course, you could have asked a question, but we're coming up to the end of the show, so we may not get it when we're a little behind. So just to give you an idea, so a Florida man story, and these are not good because right now, apparently, the biggest Florida man story is taken all the headlines where apparently somebody shot 2 people that were whatever. But here's the headline: Florida man accused of intentionally setting car on fire with wife inside.
Oh my God.
And that happened apparently around 6 a.m. today.
So there's maybe a need for some,
And also today, somebody that got arrested back in June of 2023 was sentenced today for 7 years. And he was sentenced for putting together a dog fighting conspiracy.
A dog fighting conspiracy.
Yes. So he conspired with others to purchase, acquire, and breed dogs for use in dog fights. And he would stage dog fights here in Florida, which is in Spring Hill, not far from Orlando here, and would travel between Florida and Massachusetts and Connecticut. And it was a 10 pit bull type dog ring that he would.
No one's invoking Michael Vick jokes with this, or
yeah, I think they stay away from that. So that's your Florida man thing. And normally I would have put you on a task to try to find a story in your local area to challenge that.
But, South Carolina has plenty of them. I don't know that it would take too much.
Yeah. But all right. Well, Mike, thank you very much for hopping on the show. Thanks again for coming back. And I will look for the Moovila booth when I'm out and about, and I will try to make that my first stop.
Please
as opposed to what I used to do when I would just walk on by.
Yeah. We would love to see you, and we'll have some good swag there for you.
All right. Well, you guys got swag award the last year. I don't know if you can top that for 2025.
Yeah, we're gonna do our best for it though.
So here was the question. So now your sign behind you looks like it's blue.
So we call it blurple. It's like a blue purple.
Okay. Because the original color was purple, but I got a blue mug because you couldn't get purple anymore.
Yeah, that's exactly right. There was sort of a limited edition run that maybe it was Yeti, I think, had, and so we were able to get one that just turned out to be close to our color. So it's not a standard. Our color is not a standard color, so it just depends on whether or not how close we can get something to the color, to the blurple.
Okay. And you know the reason, one of the reasons I picked that is I love the size. So it is the perfect size to fit underneath a Keurig without having to take out the tray.
Oh, nice. Oh, perfect. Did you get the one with the tapered bottom that will fit into your cup holder
Yes.
a little more easily? Oh, beautiful.
Yes,
Yeah, that's what I love about that one. Yeah, we
Yeah.
get very sort of obsessive compulsive about that
Right.
stuff.
Yeah. So, all right. So I'll be on the lookout for new swag for 25 and see.
Yeah. Please do. Please come by. We'd love to make another run at the title.
All right. So those of you that are watching, thank you for joining in. As I said, Eric and Tim let themselves be known, and I know that looks like at least 6, 7 others at least popped in. Thank you for watching, and thank you for downloading and subscribing if you're listening after the fact. And be sure to subscribe on whichever platform you're watching. We're on the 3 big social medias, LinkedIn, YouTube, and the Facebook. And of course, you can find us on most podcatchers. But if you head over to itbusinesspodcast.com, you can find your favorite one there. You can listen to past shows. Maybe if you're watching live and you skipped over an audio with Mike for episode 766, go back to listen to that, where we describe more in detail about how Moovila is the AI project management platform that you need going forward. And I didn't mention sponsors tonight. Of course, I'm here at Zero Trust World. Thank you to ThreatLocker, and thank you to NetAlly for being my premier partner. And I should probably thank Rhythms, because even though it didn't quite work, and it's not their fault, there's some towers down around here for some reason, but they are my internet on the road. And I think that's it, because nobody else is paid, so I'm not going to mention any other sponsors. So, but thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for paying attention and joining the show. I don't know why my brain just farted right there, but that was a terrible outro. But that'll do it, folks. It's been a long day. We'll see you soon. Be looking out for all the audio shows from here from Zero Trust World, and we'll be back with another live show next week. Mike, thank you for hanging on the show.
Thanks, Marvin.
And,
thanks, everybody.
We'll see everybody next time. And until then, holla.